Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this quarterly meeting of the Asia Expert Working Group of the Local Public Sector Alliance. For a brief introduction, I'm Madhvi Rajadhyaksha, and I lead the public sector governance portfolio at Oxford Policy Management. I'm joined here by my co-chairs. Lima, do you want to pull up the presentation, please? I'm joined here by my co-chairs. We have Rachna Shrestha, who's a senior public management specialist at the Asian Development Bank. And we have Peter, who is an associate director for governance at the Asia Foundation. I also wanted to say a thanks to Dr. Jamie Boix, who is the executive director of the LPSA and isn't here. And especially to Lima, who has been coordinating and pulling all this together and has been in touch with our speakers here. So thanks for joining, everybody. I'm going to start with maybe setting a bit of a context about LPSA. This might be a bit repetitive for those of you who know us, but it's for the benefit of those of you who are joining us for the first time. LPSA is essentially an open and collaborative network that seeks to enhance the understanding of decentralization and localization as complex, cross-cutting, and multi-sector reforms. There are many ways in which you can engage with this knowledge network. We do knowledge webinars. We have these meetings of the Asia Expert Working Group, which are essentially open meetings once every quarter. There's a newsletter which updates you on the latest developments on decentralization and localization, so you can feel free to sign up. There's a LinkedIn group. As you will see on the next slide, we have a lot of working groups currently underway. Some of these are geographically split, as is this one, which is dedicated to the Asia Pacific region. And there are some thematic groups, maybe for the group who's here today. The Cities and Urban Development Working Group will be of particular interest. For today's meeting, what we have thought of doing is to have a thematic focus. And as all of you who have signed up will know, we are focusing on cities and how cities are governed. So this is essentially looking at the Sustainable Development Goal 11. The reason for doing this is twofold. We had a lot of requests in our past meetings, and a lot of you basically suggested that you would like to know more, like to engage more with urban governance issues. So hence this topic. But also it is a rather relevant and timely discussion for all the policy discussions and debates that have been happening in the region. So we have quite an interesting agenda today, and I'm going to jump straight in. Our first speaker is Helmi Abidin. Helmi is a project manager with UCLG Asia Pacific, that is the United Cities and Local Governments, where he has been working since 2016. Helmi holds a master's degree in disaster and emergency management from the Istanbul Technical University. And his areas of expertise are disaster risk management, climate change, and urban resilience. Helmi will today walk us through the City Enabling Environment Rating, which essentially looks at both the formal and informal enablers that shape how cities function. This is an assessment that has been done across 28 countries in the Asia Pacific region. Over to you, Helmi. We have about 15 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Lima, for the short introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Greetings here from Jakarta, the United Cities Local Government Asia Pacific Secretariat. And as I mentioned that for today, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity. I would like to share the presentation of the City Enabling Environment Assessment. Basically, UCLG ASPAC as a local government association in the region, we are supporting and delivering some support for the city in accelerating their effort in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. And also for this year, UCLG Asia Pacific is conducting the new CE rating specifically for climate governance. But before that, I would like to share what we have conducted back 2018. Let me share the screen. So yeah, so this is the city enabling environment assessment on environmental and climate change governance. So that we are currently assessing and in 2023. But before that, I would like to share what the result of 2018. So this is the, sorry. Oh, I think my mouse is very like sensitive, so it's fasting moving, fasting. And yeah, this is the contents of the City Enabling Environment Asia Pacific 2018. So basically, the idea of this assessment was inspired by UCLG Africa. So we conducted this 2018, and we brought some criteria from the Africa side to the Asia Pacific. Why we conducted this? We know that within there are so many like challenges in implementing the SDGs in the region, especially in the Asia Pacific. And according to the latest report from the UNSCAP back during the API FSD 2023, that most of the SDGs targets are off track, and we know that there should be some like key fundamentals uh, kind of keys fundamentals resources that enough result to implement those SDGs at the local level. But again, the assessment report is open. You can also download if you have time, like download the open through the website of UCLG. And also this is also was conducted together with City Alliance and UNDP. So it is assessed at 28 countries in the Asia Pacific, and this is the enablers of of the CEE, and the formal elements of the enabling factors like policy, law, system governance, fiscal autonomy, and level of public engagement. And for some clarification, we want to emphasize that here this is about the URE aspect of the national level that enables all prohibits of policy and action at the local level. So this is not about the implementation. We do not evaluate the implementations at the local level. So this is what to have often see how national government provide the enabling condition to the local government in implementing or targeting the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. So this is the all the enablers that, and this why I think the based on the core of the problem, we know that enabling environment system supporting the developments and operation of the city in the region are different. We know that in some countries in the Asia Pacific, they have different level of governance, different level of condition, geographical condition, and etc. So this is not to compare between country to country. It's not apple to apple, like totally different, like between India, Indonesia, China. Those are very different in the governance system and the political system, and etc. So we don't compare. Result is not comparable for every country. And also we know that this is some causes on that, we also assess on the legal here is including the policy, regulatory system that like clarity and consistency uh, you know in the region. And also in the governance system, there are some like clarity, authority, and infrastructure, and also there are some causes here, market and logistic. And there's some consequences on that. Due to that, there is some uncontrolled regulatory urban developments, and I think most of you know aware of that. There's some consequences of this kind of process due to this uh, legal and governance aspect. And this is the contents of the CE of 2018. 2018. We just want to have some, like broad goals number 11 on the making cities and human settlement inclusive, safe and resilience on SDGs goal number 11. And we know that there's some realities and challenges brought by the urbanization layers of local government, and vis-a-vis, we know that there are some challenges in implementing those global development agenda at the local level. Sometimes there is some uh, there's some still gaps, yeah, between the levels what the already agreed by the national governments and implementing to our local levels. And this is how, what and how we conducted the CE 2018. We know that the CE rating is a toolkit designed to support local government capacity to collect some analysis data and also performances and factors contributing to the operation and impact on the urban local bodies. And also it allows national and subnational government to benchmark the selected enabling environments criteria against the minimum condition required for cities to contribute on the effective management of urbanization. Once again, for this report also we still kind of like it's very subjective, so we also assess this with several like criterias. And overall, the CE rating 2018, there are 11 criteria on it. Criteria number one is more on the constitutional framework. Number two is legislative framework. Number three is local democracy. Four is financial transfer from like central to local governments, and also local government on revenue. Yeah, we put as a criteria different, separately. And also capacity buildings of local government administration, transparency, citizen participation, local government performance, urban strategy, and criteria number 11 is one of the environmental and climate change governance. So once again, this criteria is based on the good governance, you know, uh, good governance approach that we have, and also based on the those 11 criteria, we put some descriptions and also give us some classes. The lowest is number one and the highest is four. So each classes, they have some description on it, like in regards to the criteria itself. And this is, we also put some score, one, to the on that. And the highest score is like higher than 33. That this country categorized or most favorable legislative enabling environment for action of the city in accordance with the condition adopted. So this is the highest score, and the lowest is that country that still like in enabling environment and generally unfavorable to action of the cities. This is and what how we conducted. So based on experience in 2018, we have some method to collect the data. So the data collection was also, before that we developed some methodology through the expert group meetings. We conducted several group discussion, and we pilot testing 10 countries as a first, for the assessment. And also, and the assessment were also conducted with support from local government association in the region. I think I see here Hemanti from FSLG Sri Lanka, and also others local government who contributed to the assessment as an enumerator. And in some countries also we have some like we had some difficulty to get some assessment, but then we had a collaboration with the local university and also with some local institution to to provide to be enumerators. This is, and also for the quality assurance, we check against all other index and indicators. And also there's some peer review, country peer review, and supported by uh, local government association. And this is the overall total score of the CE rating based on, for the overall. Uh, for example, here, like country with the higher score than 33, we put in the green color, like Bhutan, India, Iran, Indonesia, Japan, China, New Zealand, Vanuatu, like those green, and Pakistan, only one country that we put score like less than the minimum score, and others is like 12 countries got like has a score have a score like around 33 to 28, and this is when we put the average of the score according to the 11 criteria, we know that there are some like a very weak enabling condition on the, for example, on the local government on revenue. We know that there is no some enough capacity from local government to have some bankable project, or to have like innovative financings to develop their own revenue. This is still weak here, and there's urban strategy as well, and but higher on, but quite impressing. Surprising here, like transparency is they put like 3.5, but it's still debatable. I think we have to look against like in the criteria, and also uh, on the climate environmental governance, the score is moderate 3. This is the overall, and local democracy, for example, like 2.8. We know that every country in the Asia Pacific, they have their own different levels of the local democracy. And this is the total country score. If you can figure here on the local government on revenue, for example, if we say here Maldives has a score 1, Cambodia 1, Vietnam 1, but others country that they have quite high score, like we know like Solomon Island, New Zealand, and Japan, even they put score 3, not even maximum 4 for the local government on revenue. And sorry. Hmm. And for the country, for the urban strategy, yeah, as you see here from screen, that Vietnam, China, Japan, they have some enabling condition on the quite high, yeah, on the score. And for the financial transfer from the central to local governments, I think India here has a maximum score. India, Thailand, Timor-Leste, Fiji, but others country, they have still limited conditions, like how national government still control the financial transfer mechanism from national to local governments. And this is the example from the Philippines. For the overall score of the Philippines is quite high, like 36 of 44, and but they have still like still some gaps here on the, for example, they put quite low here for the local governments on the like rate of the existing taxes, and also like earning the revenue, and also this is criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and rest of like put on the very high on the national legislation and citizen participation. But there is a quite unique input when I last week I was in the Philippines. I presented the new 2030, and they put lower score for the citizen participations, and I think there is some changing perception on that toward the citizen participation. This is the some notes for the Philippines, and yeah, this is some proposed reforms from 2018. And for the 2030, we UCLG ASPAC now we are doing the new assessment, focus on the criteria 11. on the climate, on the environmental and climate change governance. Why? We know that the climate change is kind of like alarm for ours for local government. It's been quite uh, very sensitive issues in the region, and we know that climate is everyone business, and so we want to assess specifically on the criteria number 11. And also we are now a part of the consortium partners project implementation with UNSCAP and also with GIZ on the urban at 5 countries, including China, India, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand. So we use the same format and methodology for the 2018 assessment on the criteria 11. And this is the current situation justification why we conduct this assessment on the criteria 11. And this is
Helmi, I'm
the
sorry, we have a minute
yeah,
to go.
okay.
Sorry, we have a
Yeah,
minute to go.
okay, I will make it fast here. So this is not finished yet. So we put into several sub criteria. So there are 5 sub criteria of criteria 11. Same like regulatory, governance, bureaucracy, financial issues like financing and resource mobilization, and public participation. So this is the assessment. So we put on the classes 1 to 4, and we some like some description on it. And this is the example of the result. So it's not finalized yet. I think once we finalize, we expect to have this result by the end of November. So we will, like if you have any, concern or some comments regarding this assessment, feel free to have a more discussion with you. I think thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Helmi. That was very, very rich, and I'm really fascinated with how much information you'll have pulled together. I wanted to just open up the floor to see if anyone had reflections, thoughts, or questions for Helmi.
Well, I'll start off then. Thank you
Go
for the
ahead.
presentation. I thought it was really, really interesting, and I get excited about how I might be able to use it. I'm kind of interested in what the responses have been to the authorities. I mean, part of this is to help to inform policy dialogue. And, it's quite public, so countries can compare how they did and things like that. But I found it interesting that so many of the countries were located in the top 2 bands. And I'm just wondering how much impetus there will be on policymakers to take further steps based on the analysis and the new information that's being generated. Because, they could say, oh, well, I agree with some of it. We don't agree with other things. There's more to do. We can kind of live with where we are. Or it could be, wow, we actually see clearly where we need to work, and let's focus on that. So I'm just wondering what the spectrum is like in terms of responses.
Yeah, this is very tough
Thanks.
question. Yeah, thank you, Robert. And actually, this been questions as well for utilize and also using this result of 2018 assessment. And we collaborate with several institution in the regions, like like UNSCAP. They have a platform of Asia Pacific Forum for API FSD, like organized every year. So through this channel, we share with the country related to the result of the city enabling environment ratings. And I believe that we come up with some recommendation for the country that still uh, has a very low score in the some criteria, for example, like as I mentioned earlier from my presentation, that fiscal transfer from national to local government still low in some countries. That I think they have uh, still gaps on like maybe some capacity, and to some institutions, maybe some regulation that they have lack on that. And the second, we learn from UCLG Africa, and they managed to use the ratings to endorse, to at the African Union, and also as a benchmark for uh, national governments to support the city level in implementing the SDGs at the local, and also looking for another uh, innovative financings from regional donors or institutions, for example. This is still a challenge for us as well in the region. We know that Asia Pacific is very diverse, and like some countries they have enough capacity, and some others is still lack for the capacity itself. I think it's good also. And the last, I think we can utilize the local government association, national government association. In some countries they are very active, but and strong, but in some countries, but still has some limited involvement or power to not to criticize, yeah, to brings the aspirations, the condition from the local to national. I think I see Hemanti is raising hand here,
Yeah,
so
maybe
maybe
Hemanti wants to add
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Hemanti,
Oh
do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you very much, Helmi, and nice to be connected again. And we were involved in the first assessment. I just have a small comment to make, because there are certain subjects that are fully devolved to the local councils. For instance, now in Sri Lanka, the environment and climate change adaptation, there are few agencies involved, like, from the national government to the provincial government to the local councils. So what I see is there's a bit of a gap in this assessment where when the sole responsibility is not vested with the local councils, like we kind of find it challenging to capture that information. So this is something I observed when we did the first assessment. And of course, as an association, now we are kind of lobbying the national government to devolve this subject to the local councils, because they are vested with the authority as they have the planning authority. So unless the functions and funds are fully devolved, it's challenging for local councils to come up with the most feasible kind of plan to adapt for the climate changes. So that's what I just wanted to flag at this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hemanti. And that's very true. Climate is always a very tricky one because it doesn't sit with any one department typically or any one ministry. But maybe that's a good segue to our next speaker. So I wanted to invite Kanak Tiwari. Kanak Tiwari is an urban designer and development practitioner with about 2 decades of experience. She's currently the program director of the Urban Strategy Unit of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, which is India's leading national think tank on urban development and planning. Kanak also jointly heads the Urban 20, the technical secretariat for the Urban 20. And she's going to be speaking today about some of the recent discussions on U20, and we'll share some takeaways from the U20 communique, which I believe was endorsed by about 105 cities. So I think it's a good link between the first discussion and this one about how policymakers are really addressing the urban agenda. Over to you, Kanak.
All right, so it's uploading as a Google Drive link. I'll just start speaking about Urban 20. So
Thanks,
as you all
Kanak.
know, India had the G20 presidency this year. And under the G20 presidency, there are a number of engagement groups. And there are around 11 engagement groups. I'll just allow anyone with the link to view, send. Sorry, I'm so sorry for this. Yeah. Now coming back to the, yeah. So, as part of the G20 presidency, Urban 20 is one of the 11 engagement groups. And it's a little unique. It's a unique engagement group because while others like Think 20 or Women 20 or Civil 20 were getting together collectively, organizations or experts or a particular kind of homogeneous group. Am I audible, Madhvi?
Yes, you are, Kanan. Go ahead.
All right. All right. The U20, in fact, was a very different kind of engagement group, is a very different kind of engagement group. And we had immense learning while we steered the entire process as the technical secretariat. As NIUA, National Institute of Urban Affairs, was designated the technical secretariat in India for the Urban 20. Why do I say it's unique is because it almost sort of mirrors the G20. Like G20 is a collective of of country leaders of states from across G20 countries. The Urban 20 is actually a collective of city leaders, that is mayors and other city leaders. For example, from India, there were also municipal commissioners, that attended in place of mayors. And it was interesting how the lady from Sri Lanka spoke about, the devolution. The issues remain the same everywhere because even in India, the mayor remains a titular head in most cities. And therefore municipal commissioners have to take up the job of implementing a lot of projects and schemes. So it mirrors because it is a collective where mayors' voices are heard and taken to the G20 state leaders. All right, so I'll just tell you all, I'm sure you all are aware, but just quickly, G20, as you all know, comprises of 19 countries and the European Union. So there are a number of engagement groups, and Urban 20 is the city diplomacy engagement group, where cities from across G20 countries get together and agree on a set of priorities that they will take forward, work on, collaborate on, deliberate on, and finally think of some actionable areas together so that countries can then adopt them. The state governments, the country governments can adopt them and move towards the larger agenda of achieving the sustainable development goals. Now, when we started working for the Urban 20, we realized that G20, while the world is about half urbanized, 50% urbanized, if you look at the G20 countries only, on an average, G20 countries are around 88% urbanized, which is a lot of people living in cities. So this entire urban constituency, what we came to realize at NIUA was that, well, the power of this urban constituency to actually drive the global agenda is really quite a bit, but is not being utilized in the way it should be. We also, of course, back this up with all the economic drivers that cities are. About 85% of the global GDP is from urban areas, 75% of international trade. So all of that is from G20 countries. Can we, all right, just to tell you all, previous U20 cycles, this was the 6th cycle. The cities you see on the screen is where the previous cycles were held. And in 2018 was the first cycle. Can we move on to the next, please? Yeah. In every U20 cycle, as you all know, in India, we just had the G20 summit. So for every engagement group, there is a main summit. And there is also an initial preliminary sort of summit, which is known as the Sherpa meeting, if for the U20 at least. This was the sort of loose team that was set up in India for Urban 20, where we were the technical secretariat. Next, please. and Ahmedabad was the chair city. These were the 6 priority areas out of the 9 to 10 priority areas that were discussed. These were the 6 that all cities collectively uh, sort of agreed upon, and these are areas that were that came out of a discussion over 3 months. And LPSA is the name you all use, no? So LPSA is a forum like this, and at first I share that I was not always very receptive to the impact of such forums. But through this whole process of U20, I've seen that cities can together actually, yes, there'll be some fights, but actually arrive at things that are common priorities, arrive at decisions that they agree, the commitments that they all agree upon. So these were the 6 areas. I'll go through them one by one. Please, next. How we decided on these priority areas, we looked at the previous 5 cycles, and we also looked at the sustainable development goals, all of them, not only SDG 11. And we saw that there were certain areas that were not covered. So what we did was we saw which of the priorities had been covered in the past cycles, and you see the green boxes. These are the priorities that had been covered in the past U20 cycles, and the red boxes showed areas that are very important in the development agenda, but have not been adequately focused on in the past cycles. However, some of those that had been already covered, we wanted to reinforce them and continue the emphasis that was given to them. The only thing that the G20 clarion call in India was to move from intention to action. So we also thought of choosing priorities from where we could define what and why does something need to be done, but how, who, and when will those things be done is what we intended to also talk about. The next, please. The first priority was encouraging environmentally responsible behaviors. I know I have very less time, so I'll not go through these. But these are the priorities that have been covered in the U20 communique that was endorsed by 105 cities. What is very important about this priority area is that it's a sort of an ecosystem. It can drive change in the entire ecosystem. One is not talking about behaviors at a personal individual level. One is talking about behaviors of industry, behavior of governments, behavior of businesses. So a kind of entire ecosystem change is required, where everybody thinks about environment in a responsible way, and where a larger global framework can be created through which just transitions can be achieved. So one important thing that goes with your agenda for this is, when we say there is this SDG goal, how do you localize that goal? How do you measure locally? Whether a city or an area, even suppose an area is redeveloping, whether it's redeveloping in such a way that is sustainably responsible and is therefore also contributing towards achieving whatever small way it is contributing in towards achieving the larger global agendas. Next, please. The next one is ensuring water security. Now, while this had been covered under the bigger priority of environment in the previous cycles, we literally extracted it and to give it more focus, given that water scarcity, water security is such a big agenda. I mean, people say there'll be wars over water in the future. I hope not. But in here we wanted to speak about how an entire water cycle, water management practice can be mainstreamed in all cities across the G20. How can existing water ecosystems be revitalized, and how can water governance be made more effective, whether it is sharing of water resources, or it is yes, I'm in a meeting, I'll just or whether it is, sharing peer learning among cities. If a Johannesburg or a Cape Town had a day zero, how did they recover from it is an experience that that city should be able to share through international platforms with other cities who are like with the Chennai, it could have shared the experience. However, I don't know why in this connected, globalized world, that kind of thing is not happening. Through U20, we also tried that. Next, please. So this was also covered under the G20. Here we only focused on getting climate finance directly to cities, for which cities had to be attractive enough to attract this finance, and cities also had to create a sort of enabling environment needed to be created in cities to ensure this flow of climate finance. Otherwise, cities themselves are not able to access these multiple, global level finance setups that have been created. Cities are not able to access them, especially from the global south. And G20 was an interesting forum because we had a London, a New York, and an Ahmedabad and a Jakarta at the same forum. So why would a London, New York be more, how can they access more climate finance as compared to an Ahmedabad, was a question that was asked at the forum. And these are the differences that need to be learned from other cities and just cleared away. Next, please. Now, this was very important. This was never before covered in any U20 cycle before. So championing local culture and economy is where we wanted to literally speak about local errors. We wanted to say, yes, we are living in a globalized world, but can we talk about a sense of place? Can we talk about the uniqueness of places? While everything is becoming digital, can we protect and preserve and enhance the livelihoods of the local community, the traditions, the crafts, the heritage, the built heritage as well as the intangible heritage of the local communities, and at the same time provide economic development. Next, please. This was again a new area because before this, spatial planning had not been given enough adequate coverage in any of the U20 cycles. However, we felt that with urban governance, while urban governance is happening at the institutional level and at the policy level, that is manifested on ground only through disciplines like urban planning and urban design. And unless this entire, all of these disciplines change together, the change on the ground will not be visible. We also spoke about, very interestingly, in the beginning, Madhvi, you said about governance. We spoke about how there is a need for hybrid governance, not only vertically hybrid governance where, national, subnational, and local level governments are working in tandem vertically, but also what is happening, for example, in a national capital region like Delhi, where Delhi is surrounded by other states. However, that entire capital region, even if it has a spatial plan, because of a lack of a horizontal governance framework where these different jurisdictions talk to each other, it cannot be governed well. The economic, cultural potential of this region, we have not been able to realize because of the lack of such a framework. Similarly, at very local level, we are not able to go for redevelopment unless there is a single ownership of something. For example, the Kidwai Nagar colony has redeveloped in Delhi because it's owned by the national government. The land is owned by them. With very, very small lands owned by private people, where is the governance framework to get them together to be able to renew the city, regenerate the city at local levels? Next, please. So this was the last one. It was also covered under G20 adequately. I won't get into this because there's some other things I want to. But here also we talked about inclusion, the digital divide, and how can that be bridged. Next, please. Next, please. This is the Urban 20 communique. It had 105 endorsements. Could you go to the previous slide, please? These are some of the outcome documents prepared under the U20. I don't think the list of the cities is visible, but all of this is available on the U20 website. I urge you all to go there. Next, please. White papers were written by expert task forces for each of the priority areas, and they give a good, um, overview of challenges and recommendations for each of these priority areas. Next, please. So there are two major meetings. I can boast a little bit. In India, we broke the records of all previous urban 20s with the kind of participation that we had, international participation, and the consensus building exercise that we could pull off. Next, please. I won't get into the numbers. At the mayoral summit, we repeated that and officially handed over the communique to the G20 Sherpa and to the Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs in India. Next, please. These are some other knowledge products. I won't get into the details. Can you please only one thing. I wanted to also tell you that mainstreaming women-led urban frameworks is an interesting document. And if you all are interested in this area, do go and have a look at the U20 website. Also, because G20 said that women-led development is something that G20 also backed this time. This was very important because we used a gender lens to assess each of the priority areas and assess the gender gaps, the issues for each of the priority areas. Next, please. Next, please. So some of the key achievements included that, yeah, we were the first cycle to focus specifically on climate financing, local culture, urban planning, water security. All of this I've already said, highest recorded endorsement of the communique, highest participation in the meetings, and we had a deep convergence with other engagement groups. In fact, we have also felt that Urban 20 is an engagement group that should flow as a horizontal among all groups. I mean, there are so many groups. When all of these groups are based in cities, the urban issues are actually very, intricately associated with them. So Urban 20 as a horizontal was something, in fact, suggested by the G20 Sherpa. And the Jan Bhagidari effort, which for people who don't understand Hindi, means the people's participation effort, which was a sort of instruction by the G20 Secretariat to take it out to as many people as possible so that the message goes to people, so that people understand what are SDGs. I mean, otherwise it's just a few of us who keep talking about SDGs. What about the people on the road? That was what was the G20 Secretariat's instructions, and we took it to 11,000 plus participants, which according to our team was a big achievement. Yeah. So just wanted to say that in India and also other cities of whether the Asia Pacific or the global South, one has to realize the power of the urban constituency. A lot of people are dependent on cities, whether they are living there or not. This is one of the biggest learning that we had as part of the U20 process. The other learning that we had was the mayors or the city leaders from, if I can call them that, cities that are ahead or more devolution has happened there, are more vocal about the needs of their people as compared to the mayors in our cities. And they are speaking the diplomatic language. When we said U20 is a diplomatic forum, even we had no idea what that meant. But we realized over time that, the mayors were articulating people's viewpoints. Mayors were articulating their own viewpoints in such a good way as compared to our mayors. So a huge capacity building gap is what we observe that we have to get our city leaders up to a level, at least in terms of the knowledge, especially when they are representing their cities in a global forum like this. And apart from this, I also want to share that the G7 has also given urban its due importance by having the U7 now. So for the past 2 years, there's been the U7, and there has been this Japan group of mayors. And ever more than before now, for the first time for 4 years in a row, Indonesia, India, Brazil, and South Africa will have the G20 presidency. So this is the time for the global South to actually take forward agendas that are important for countries and cities from the global South, and and we should just work together and not just end it with an event. We should take it forward by actually actioning some of these, getting together with cities through platforms like yours. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kanak, and that's a really powerful note to leave us on. I wanted to give Rishika a few minutes to come in. Rishika Dasroy is a dear colleague, and she leads our urban policy and practice planning team at Oxford Policy Management. Rishika, over to you, and thanks for staying back.
Sure. No, thank you so much, Kanak and Helmi. It was really great listening to you both. I just had a couple of reflections, and this will probably help keep the discussion going. One of them, especially at the U20, a clear message was that cities are responding, right, to climate change. And there is a massive burden on cities to respond to it fairly quickly because it hits their service delivery the first. So, in terms of framing it around actual impacts, cities many times are at the front lines of climate change and its sort of devastating impacts. The issue was that urban frameworks or urban regulatory frameworks weren't evolving at the same pace at which climate frameworks were needed. So, all of the cities and the people that we interacted with, and most of the key points that came out from the communique, brought back to the core of the matter that there was a governance gap and a planning gap because you had urban planners speaking a certain language. They spoke on certain temporal scales, which were, more often than not decadal in nature, or at least 5 to 7 to 10 years in nature, whereas climate conversations need decisions and data which is quick, immediate, and responsive. So how do you combine these two sort of areas of working or languages of working as well? So for me it was very clear that there was this sort of tension or issue that sort of everyone was trying to resolve. One was at the sort of scalar level. Where do cities come into this climate conversation? What is that entry point, be it in terms of policy or climate finance or even water security? I know, Kanak, you just mentioned it. And the other thing was, how can we help cities make these decisions across sectors, so as to not create more silos, right? So if a city is planning on water, what does that mean on finding nature based solutions and the broader sort of ecosystem services that that city provides, and not just look at water per se? So I felt like these kind of things were very important conversations to have, and they brought together a great deal of nuance. But I also felt that it actually ties what Kanak's saying and what Helmi's saying very well, because I thought both speakers spoke about entry points and enabling frameworks. And if we get that right, I think that's a big challenge that we'll be dealing with, because we'll be coming up with a new language that everyone understands, especially practitioners and city officials, and that'll to an extent bridge that capacity divide that Kanak was talking about. But I'll stop talking. I know I just had like a minute or two to sort of bring in my inputs, but happy to hear from others and to sort of take this discussion forward.
Thank you so much, Rishika and Kanak. That's been very relevant reflections. And I think coalitions like this, I think both of you made the same point that we need to keep engaged to really move from intention to action, as you said, Kanak. Let's stay engaged. We'll put out the U20 communique as well on the LPSA forums. I think it's just another forum through which it can reach more people. I wanted to say a huge thank you to all of you for your time, for your contribution in terms of your knowledge and insights. I'm sorry we had tech glitches, but that's par for the course. We will be meeting at our next quarterly meeting on the 16th of Jan. And I encourage everyone who's on this call, if you'll have suggestions of topics, subjects that you'll would like to bring up, do feel free to reach out to any of us. I'm going back very, very enriched and really thinking through, different perspectives on how to catalyze, whether it's policies, whether it's coalitions that Kanak spoke about, or benchmarks that Helmi brought up. So thank you very much. I hope it's been as useful to everyone here as it has for me. Have a good day.